So, I thought I might get to talking about the Warcraft movie. And I've not scripted this or anything, I've not actually planned this video. I've just thought I might take some time to put my thoughts about the movie onto video. Just because people seem to think I'm good at lore, and some of them wanted to know what I thought about the movie. Especially some people have asked, should they watch it? Would they enjoy it if they don't know the lore of the games? And my immediate answer is, yeah, watch it. It's a great movie. I really enjoyed it. But then after thinking about it, I thought, well, would you enjoy it as much as I did if you didn't know what was going on? And based on the interactions I've had with my friends who watched it with me, I'm inclined to say, watch it with caution, if anything. Maybe do some reading up first, because there's a lot that the movie does not address, or outright changes, or makes up. Not to say that that's a bad thing. I really enjoyed this movie. I've been wanting to see this movie, since I was something like 5 years old. So I'm going to advocate this movie whatever happens, but, if you don't know the lore as well as I do, I'd suggest maybe erring on the side of caution and waiting, or not watching it at all. Or watching it after doing some research, maybe. Just as for the movie itself, I really enjoyed this movie. I mean, it had some amazing stuff in it. Sure, okay, I'm going to say right now it wasn't a perfect movie. It had some serious problems with pacing. A lot of the characters didn't have very much time devoted to them, so they didn't have very strong characterization. A lot of the human characters in particular were very much just sort of... They were archetypical characters rather than characters in their own right. That's not uniform, the characters like Khadgar. Khadgar was great. You could tell that he was actually a person with an independent personality. Like, you could see every scene he was touching something, looking at things, fiddling with his hands, doing something. But then there were other characters like Lothar, who, Anduin Lothar is really cool, and I liked seeing him in the movie, but his role was the, hero character. He's basically Aragorn, come on. The orc characters, and I don't think anyone is surprised by this, had a lot more time devoted to them in terms of actual personality. I mean, you could see Durotan and Garona and Orgrim Doomhammer all interacting together and really getting their brains out there. And then there's Gul'dan, and oh goddamn, Gul'dan was awesome. I would watch this movie 10 times in a row just to see all of the Gul'dan scenes again. I'm gonna say this right now, Gul'dan in Warcraft, in Hearthstone, maybe less so in Hearthstone, but in the games, in the movie, is one of the best goddamn villains I've ever seen. He is perfect. And in this movie, he's absolutely amazing. I think there was one bit at the very beginning that cemented why Gul'dan is so great to me. He's walking past his prisoners, who he's going to sacrifice, I believe, and one of them begs him that he let her son go. And he just looks at her with this confused expression and says quite simply, "But I need him." And, it made me realize there are some villains that will disregard someone's point of view or desires. But Gul'dan is a step above that. In that line, he did not realize or even understand that this person could have a point of view. He said it as if he'd never once considered that this character could possibly have desires or wants opposing his own. That is true villainy. And that is a villain I can get behind. Okay, this is a spoiler. This is spoilery, so just skip to... I'm going to put up a thing that says where to skip to. There's a scene where Durotan challenges Gul'dan to Mak-Gorah, a challenge to the death for rulership of the Horde. And you're thinking, okay, look, you can see Gul'dan, he's this frail old man. You can see Durotan, he's a gigantic beefcake. And the rules of Mak-Gorah are you're not allowed any magic or anything, or any weapons. It's just you and your opponent. And then Gul'dan steps up, slams his staff into the ground and takes off his shirt and just, oh God almighty, I had never considered that Gul'dan even had a body at all. But goddamn, he's just completely covered in, not muscle like Durotan is, but old man muscle, like the kind of wiry strength you associate with someone who's very old, but who is also, an orc. And I loved seeing that even Gul'dan is still subject to these rules of orcs, including the rules of physiology, which is awesome. Some of my favourite characters in Warcraft were in this. You know, we had Gul'dan, we had Orgrim Doomhammer, we had goddamn Medivh. Medivh was great! I mean, he really did that kind of distant eccentricity that a lot of people seem to forget that Medivh's meant to have. He's meant to be a madman, or at least, not a madman exactly, just odd. He's meant to be strange. He's meant to be a man who sits in his tower almost completely alone and does magic. And the first thing you see is he's got his shirt off, he's making a golem entirely on his own, apparently just for fun. Seeing things like Stormwind, or the Dark Portal, or Draenor, or a bunch of Draenei just alive and in the world was absolutely incredible. But I think probably the one thing that most brought the world to life has to be the magic in this. Oh my god, I've never seen magic so well done in a movie. I mean, the magic in this isn't even explained. You don't need to be told any of the rules of magic to understand what's going on. It's obvious, for example, that to do magic you need to say words, which is something never really explored. One of the first things you see of the magic casting characters is he's slammed onto the table and his mouth is immediately covered so he can't cast magic. And it's just, it's such a subtle thing. It's not really, doesn't really have much attention drawn to it, but it's so obvious. You know, if there's a wizard, the first thing you're going to do is cover his mouth so he can't cast any spells. It makes perfect sense. And visually, you can see that runes and writing and words are very important to magic in this. And that's something that hasn't even been explored in the games. You know, you see sometimes you can see spell books and some magic words here and there in the Warcraft games, but almost uniformly all of your spells are cast non-verbally. You just do the gestures and cast a spell. But in the movie, yeah, there's runes everywhere. You've got to draw the runes on the floor to cast a portal. You've got to have the runes appear around your hand to cast the spell. You've got to keep chanting the words to keep the dark portal awake and alive. It makes sense, and it feels so real. You know, combine that with the very, very conscious decision they made to establish the rules of Fel magic, the demon magic that Gul'dan uses, that they need to keep siphoning life in order to power themselves, like a battery almost. They really managed to make the magic feel very, very real. I mean, the action was awesome. God damn awesome. I mean, they really used the size of the orcs to their advantage. They made it very clear that orcs are like twice the size of a human, vertically and horizontally. They couldn't beat them with bravado and strength alone. They had to outsmart them. But you know, one thing a lot of people have been asking me is, how do I feel about some of the lore changes, like having Dalaran be flying in this, having Orgrim Doomhammer be a Frostwolf instead of a Blackrock Orc, things like that. And I say, it's fine. I'm happy to see these changes because they're made to serve the movie better, rather than to tell a verbatim story taken from the games. You know, I would much rather have a well-told movie version of the story, rather than a long, drawn-out, or even worse, an incredibly rushed version of the story from the games. I expect them to change a great deal more in the other movies that they're going to do, because there's so much story to Warcraft. I mean, you can ask anyone, but I'm probably the person who can most reliably tell you there is too much story in Warcraft to put into the space of 2.5 hours at most. So I'm happy to see these changes because they made the story more coherent and more immediately readable. You know, like I said, it's not a perfect movie. There's problems. There's things like rushed pacing, rushed characterization. A lot of things are just simply not explained, which for me is fine. I know all of these answers, but for a lot of people, they didn't get it. You know, why are the orcs there? Why does Gul'dan have this magic? What is Gul'dan's real reason for doing all this? It's not really explained, and sometimes that's fine. Like, when you really focus on it, when you really pay attention, you see that the focus of the movie is not on the reason behind this war. It's just that there's a war between orcs and humans. They very, very purposefully, I think, ignored demons. They didn't show any demons. They didn't show any great evils. They only showed a glimpse of anything demonic at all. And I think the word demon was mentioned twice. Once to refer to Medivh, and once just talking about magic itself, just saying we're using this demon magic. Other than that, you know, demons, which are such an integral part of Warcraft lore, especially orc lore, demons weren't mentioned. None of that was mentioned. It was just the fight between the orcs and the humans, and I think they did that on purpose, and I actually really appreciate that they did that, because it kept the film focused, because again, there's too much story to put into one movie, or two movies. They've got to keep it focused. I realise I've been rambling for about 15 minutes, and I'm going to be cutting away a bunch of what I've said, and I'm going to put all the rest of it into a video, and I'm probably going to put up some funny pictures or something to accompany it. I hope you appreciate my input on this. This isn't meant to be a review or anything, it's just meant to be my thoughts. I watched it about a week ago, so I've had some time to think about it. I suppose I should tell you that my favourite scene is the spoilery scene that I mentioned with Gul'dan and Durotan. And also the fact that you can see characters like Grom Hellscream just in the background among all the other orcs. Even though that doesn't quite make sense within the canon that we understand, but that's some canon that's actually kind of vague anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So, you know, watch the movie if you really want to. If you want to start learning the lore with this movie, I wouldn't recommend it, because the movie doesn't explain much. It's really, like, it's full of nods. It's full of moments where you can say, oh, I understand because I understand that lore from the game. Or things like, oh, I see, that's different from the game. Or even just situations like, oh, it's that guy from the games. I know him. The movie doesn't really explain a lot of these things. So if you want to start the lore with the movies, don't do that. You know, if you want to start the movie just as a movie to try to enjoy it and then look it all up later, do that. Absolutely. And I will always be here to answer any questions anyone has. You know, if you send me a question on Reddit or on the YouTube comments, I will definitely answer. I love answering questions. So, you know, you do you. Enjoy the movie, or not. More videos on their way. Trust me. I'm moving out into a new place in a couple of days, so I'm kind of focusing on that. Yeah. I don't know how to end video.